Hello everybody and welcome along to a brand new video. And well, it's nearly a month now since Resolution aired, the New Year's Day Doctor Who special. And we're currently in the midst of a Doctor Who gap year, unfortunately, with no series airing until 2020, no episode airing until 2020. It's still only January and it already feels like a long time since the New Year's Day special. So how do we survive the Doctor Who gap year? So yes, it's a long way to go yet, probably a year plus, depending on if there's a New Year's Day special next year. We don't quite know just yet, but if there is, great. We've only got about 11 months left to wait. If not, it's probably going to be over a year. So what do you do to fill your Doctor Who craving, shall we say, that doesn't just disappear when a series ends and you have this long span of nothing really going on to watch or to sort of follow or anything like that in relation to Doctor Who? What do you do for the year? Well, I'm going to try and give you guys a few suggestions. Now, these are generally going to be Doctor Who related. Of course, there's a myriad of other television shows that are somewhat that are sci-fi or related, similar to Doctor Who in some ways, or just any TV or films you love watching. Like, of course, you can fill stuff with non-Doctor Who, but this is very much for the Doctor Who fan. How do you sort of fill the Doctor Who hole, shall we say, that has been left by a lack of a series this year? What can you put in its place in terms of Doctor Who for this year? Number one, the most obvious one, of course, I'm sure for most people, is going back to the past, going back to the classic series, more specifically. Because of course, you can watch New Who again. That's absolutely great. I might even have a marathon of some of New Who this year as well, see how it goes. But I think for a lot of people, the sort of not more interesting, but sort of more new thing to tackle, shall we say, new old thing to tackle, will be the classic series, because a lot of people haven't really seen any of the classic series, and it feels like a gap year when you've got a long period of time without the new series. It's a good opportunity to sort of try and get stuck in and try and start watching sort of classic Who, whether it be from the beginning, from somewhere in the middle, from picking out certain stories, however you want to sort of get into classic Who. Certainly it's something I would highly recommend doing. I'm doing a marathon at the moment, which I actually started at the beginning of 2018, so I'm sort of in the midst of the second Doctor at the moment and working my way through until whenever it finishes. I just watch it as I go. But it's definitely a great way, because there's just, well, for a start, there is hundreds and hundreds of episodes of it. There's literally 650 episodes, I think, something like that in classic Who, so there is so much to watch and so much to sort of enjoy, and so many gems and classics and amazing stories. Yes, of course, there's the whole special effects on that, great. There's no denying that. Sometimes it's a little bit slow because it's quite long. But in terms of some of the stories, ideas, concepts, monsters, and everything like that, there's so many fantastic things to be found throughout the classic era that it's really, I would say, if you haven't delved into it before, definitely give it a go. In terms of where to start, it's quite a tricky one. Because starting from the beginning, of course, Unearthly Child seems like the obvious choice. Start from the very beginning and work your way through, but it is quite challenging to do first time off with the lost episodes and reconstruction and struggling along with that in black and white as well. So if you want to kind of watch a lot of episodes in a row, but want to start on an easier point, I'd say start with Speared from Space, the third Doctor's first story, the first story to be shot in colour for Doctor Who. That's probably a good sort of starting off point, because everything exists from there on in. It's also, just because it's in colour, I think it's a little bit easier to engage with as well to a degree. So maybe if you want to watch a long run, start from there. If you want to just watch kind of episodes from each Doctor, it's definitely worth looking at what the really popular ones are for each Doctor and kind of get a taste of the different ones if you're looking to do that route. Or really just dive in. I mean, because Doctor Who in the olden days was so kind of individual in terms of every single episode was its own, or every single story was its own story, it was relatively unconnected to everything else that's going on. There's never plot arcs that really carry through apart from a couple of seasons out of 26. The rest of the time it's all just sort of individual, so you really can jump in on any point. So really, just get stuck in, you've got a year for it. Number two, the next thing's worth sort of delving into if you haven't had the chance to already, or even just to go back and relive it, is the Doctor Who spin-offs. Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Class, there's lots there to be found, even K9 and Company from 1981, among other things. And there's a lot of good stuff in all of these different programmes. Class is maybe, well, it's a lot shorter, there's only 8 episodes of it, a single series, which obviously got cancelled. If you haven't seen that, it's still worth a watch, I'd say, but maybe not the greatest of the spin-offs there's ever been. Certainly Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures, if you've never seen them before, go watch them right now, they're fantastic. Both of them are brilliant. Of course, they're very different audiences, very different styles of programming. Torchwood is an adult programme, Sarah Jane is a kids programme essentially, so there is a very different style and they offer a very different audience, but they both are very, very good programmes with Lots of brilliant stories dotted in there. Both of them take a little bit of time to get going, but I think into the sort of later series of both of those shows, it very much gets going again. And even if you've seen it all before and just want something to sort of watch to guide you, tide you over in the sort of non-Doctor Who period, it's worth going back and watch them again, because there's so many fantastic stories there to rediscover and find all over again. And certainly that's another thing that I'm looking to try and do at some point this year, is sort of get back into some of the spin-offs, because I've watched them all before, but quite a long time ago. And it's just, yes, it has a strong enough connection to Doctor Who. It's a similar, obviously all sci-fi and everything like that, bringing in monsters and stuff and characters from Doctor Who for these various spin-offs. And it's, yeah, I'd say it's another thing really worth looking into for the year. Now, of course, there is a huge amount of a sort of expanded universe, as it were, Doctor Who related things and stuff to listen to read, to watch, to whatever. One of the biggest and most obvious ones is Big Finish, the audio adventures of Doctor Who, where there are about every single possible series you could imagine has been done with Big Finish. They have created stuff about so many different characters that you probably never even wanted a series about. Of course, there's a massive expanse of stuff from the 8th Doctor, the 5th through to the 8th Doctor. There's so much more stuff now, and the 8th Doctor's got many, many adventures. And even some of the new Who Doctors, well, particularly David Tennant, are getting involved with that a little bit as well at the moment. Along with lots of companions from throughout the show's history, kind of recreating, even having actors come and recreate the first Doctor. I think there's a David Bradley's done a box set with the first Doctor Adventures as well. So there's, again, if that's your kind of thing, the audio stuff, it's never been quite my thing massively. I've never really got into Big Finish sort of massively personally, but it is still something I can very much appreciate and do sort of listen into from time to time if there's a story that sounds particularly interesting, or just a particular character or something they're doing a series about that sounds really, really interesting. I just kind of go for it, because I think to a large degree Big Finish you can jump in anywhere. There is a lot of stuff. There is some stuff that's fairly sort of, you need to know what's going on. Some of the series you need to know what's going on, but a lot of it you can just sort of dive in from the beginning. Even there's Torchwood ones as well as Doctor Who ones, so you've got a huge expanse of stuff to do. And the difficult thing is the cost of it. The thing worth noting is the original main, what they call the Big Finish main range, which is a sort of a monthly story featuring one of the 4 later classic Who Doctors, which has been done, I think, pretty much every single month since 1999, when they first started doing sort of Big Finish Doctor Who audios. And the first, I think, 50 of those are on Spotify and are available to stream for free on Spotify. So if you want to kind of get a taste for it and you don't sort of have really the money to be able to spend out on these quite expensive box sets, some of them, to get just a feel for sort of what Big Finish is like, or even just to, if you just want to listen to quite a few in a row to start off with, I'd go and check that out, because there are a few really good ones there. Think of Spare Parts, that's a particularly good one. The sort of Genesis of the Cybermen style story, which I think is really, really fantastic, and one of the favourite ones that I've listened to personally. So that's kind of a good opportunity to have a listen into that, and it just gives a lot more sort of expansion of characters. The 8th Doctor's got many different companions introduced in there that we never saw on TV, only get referenced in Night of the Doctor around the 50th anniversary special. But apart from that, there's so much new stuff had been added into there, stuff about the Time War, lots of different Doctors, Masters, extra Masters, the War Master Derek Jacobi's done more stories, loads of different ones, different villains, and just a huge array of different characters. So I'd say it's definitely something worth checking out if you've got the time, and to a degree if you've got the money to spend this year. Of course, alongside that, Doctor Who's very, very big in terms of the sort of the print media side of things. So in terms of books and the Doctor Who magazine, you've got comics, everything like that. There's a huge expanse again of that to be able to sort of delve your way into. There's many, many novels. You've got all the Target novelizations, both the sort of re-released new ones and some of the really old classic ones from the classic series stories in reasonably short book format, which are really nice ones to read. They're kind of, they were originally intended, I think, pretty much as children's books, but they are still a really enjoyable read. They're reasonably easy to read, only a couple hundred pages or so generally, so it doesn't take forever to read them. They're really reasonably cheap if they haven't gotten out of print. And they're definitely sort of a nice, sort of almost an easier way, I think, to access classic Who to a degree, because you don't have to deal with the dodgy sets and long episodes. You can just read a nice novelisation, imagining what it would be like if they actually had all the money, essentially. So that's, I'd say, another avenue to look down for sort of my 4th point in terms of that. Doctor Who magazine, they try their best to bring as much content as they possibly can as we go through the Doctor Who-less year. Generally, they do a fairly good job of filling it with stuff, even when there's really nothing happening. There's some of the issues I find are a little bit lacking, but generally it is worth a read, I find, generally, and there's usually some stuff in there that's worth having a look at. And my number 5 point would probably be get creative, guys, because, well, Doctor Who, there's so much opportunity to be creative off it, whether it's in artwork, whether it's in music, whether it's in sort of video, fan films, things like that. whether it's just anything like that. You can even write your own stories, just things like that. There's so many sort of different avenues. If you didn't like the last series, write your own series 11, write something different, you know? There's that sort of real opportunity to kind of engage with the show in a creative aspect as well. It's something that I guess, in a way, I do by doing these sort of videos, and this is my kind of way of engaging with Doctor Who a bit more, shall we say. Maybe some of you guys do these sort of videos as well. Do let me know if you do down in the comments below, and I'll try and check some of those out. But yeah, I think this is just another way to just, yeah, sort of get your creative juices flowing, and really engage with Doctor Who in that way when you've got a little bit more time in the sort of lack of Doctor Who for a year. Or of course we could all just collapse, keel over, die, hibernate, whatever, until the next series because we can't deal with being without Doctor Who. But that's probably not the best way to go about it. So I think there's Doctor Who is such a wide, there's so much material both from the actual show itself, with over 800 individual episodes of Doctor Who that's sort of been shot since 1963. Massive sort of range of audio and books and magazines and comics and everything like that. Of course, there's merchandise you can get as well, millions of different things. There's been not just me trying to promote the show. I don't care if you buy the action figures or not, but just there is so much to kind of keep involved with and keep your love for the show going through this sort of lack of Doctor Who for a year. So try not to get too down about the fact there's a gap here. Of course it's disappointing, but it just gives the opportunity to go back and explore and look back at some of the great moments from yesteryear for Doctor Who. But what about you guys? How are you planning to survive the Doctor Who gap year? Are you going to go back and watch some classic Who for the first time? Are you going to listen to some more Big Finish this year? Or are you going to look at some different TV shows and things like that? To go back to the spin-offs? I would love to hear what you guys are planning to do for 2019. But that's just about it from this video, guys. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you again very soon for another video. Goodbye.